Let's get into this movie.
Frog. Shit.
Excuse me. I'm sure everyone listening has seen Raiders of the Lost Ark, so I won't bore you with what it's about.
We recommend it. Welcome to A Cast with No Name. We are your hosts. I'm Jay.
And I'm Matt.
This is episode 56. This episode, we talk about the 1981 action-adventure film Raiders of the Lost Ark, or Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark. But Raiders of the Lost Ark before they changed it.
Yeah. So
But don't forget to visit our website, acastwithnoname.com, where you can listen to every episode in our library, comment on episodes, write to our email. Also, thank you for listening to the show. And if you are listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please rate us. It'll help the show find new listeners. And dun-dun-dun-dun, we're on YouTube. We're all in YouTube. So we're
all up in there.
Yeah, we're 3 inches deep on YouTube. All of our
Speak for
episodes,
yourself,
all episodes are posted, so you can comment on there. So if you prefer YouTube, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. We've already had some people reach out within our first week of uploading all of our episodes by somebody by the name of Batman Panther, which is kind of a cool name.
How do you think Batman Panther is?
I'm guessing 13, or based on our analytics, age 35 to 45.
Yeah, probably right.
But yeah, so on YouTube, Raiders.
Yeah. When's the last time you saw Raiders?
That was probably 8 years ago, maybe. How about you?
Same. Around there. It had been a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
About every 3 or 4 years, I tend to watch.
Yep.
All of them. Do you own them or do you watch them on? Because I think they're on Disney Plus.
They're on Disney, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I own them all.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. So
growing up, was this in the balls deep rotation? As you so eloquently explained?
It was not.
Wow.
Because
shocking.
I don't think, I've seen pieces of that movie, but I didn't really watch it. I think sat down to watch it all the way through until I was probably in high school.
Mm-hmm.
The main Indiana Jones movies I watched a lot was Temple of Doom, and The Last Crusade was probably the one I watched the most.
Gotcha.
And that I think is just because we owned it.
Mm-hmm.
We had a recorded version of Raiders of the Lost Ark, but I believe on Betamax, The Last Crusade was also with Back to the Future Part 2. So I was watching one of those movies regardless, so that's why I always popped on Last Crusade.
Yeah, I actually owned it. It was one of like the 10 movies, that we owned at the time.
Well, actually, it was what made VHS a hit because it was one of the first movies put on home video, and it sold like 500,000 copies or something. It went for sale for like $40 at the time. So, but it still sold a shit ton.
Wow.
So, but yeah, one of the first movies that came out and made the VCR popular and all that good stuff.
Yeah, that cover art is awesome. Mm-hmm. I love it.
Yeah, the Drew Struzan
Yeah.
poster art, which you don't see much anymore.
No.
I think Frank Darabont was one of the last people to really use him because I think he used him
What did he do it for?
The Mist and Shawshank Redemption and Green Mile. So he was always a big fan of Drew Struzan, and actually for The Mist, there at the beginning is the Punisher painting a picture. Thomas Jane is painting a picture for a movie poster, and the movie poster was, I think that he was painting was The Dark Tower, and a Stephen King comic at the time, but eventually made into a movie. But Drew Struzan actually did all that artwork and for the movie, and then also
for the Punisher?
Huh?
For the Punisher?
Oh no! For this was in The Mist.
Oh, okay.
So Thomas Jane's character plays a comic or movie poster artist, and
so I'm thinking of the Punisher, Thomas Jane, and he's in his apartment. I'm like, I remember that,
wearing the shirt.
Yeah. What?
And but after the storm, and then Thomas Jane makes a comment where he's like, "Oh, there's no time to repaint it. They're just going to Photoshop some heads on a box art," which I think is a direct quote from either Drew Struzan or Frank Darabont about movie posters in that day and age, to where it's all just ugly giant heads photoshopped on.
Right. I love that you knew the guy's name who did this.
The
poster art.
The poster art.
Like who?
Oh, I have a book of them upstairs. Christy got it for me for my birthday one year, I believe.
Did he do the Star Wars stuff too? Like
yes.
Okay.
Oh yeah. He did all the Indiana Jones.
Sure, he did Willow too.
He did the Goonies. He did the Back to the Future. Right. He did a lot of the Lucasfilm.
I love that stuff.
Yeah, it's great.
It's awesome.
I think he did Romancing the Stone, like all those types of movies.
Yeah. Yeah, so for me, that was one of the, like I said, 10 movies that I grew up on. I watched it way more than ever. Like, I'd always have to rent Temple of Doom or The Last Crusade. I watched those plenty, too, but Raiders all the time.
That was your one?
That was it. Oh, yeah.
So this movie came out in 1981.
Uh-huh.
It was, do you know how it came to be?
So I believe George Lucas had wrote the script like way before Star Wars, and he just put it on the shelf because he was debating on whether or not to make Star Wars first or this one first. And he decided to do obviously Star Wars first and just put it on the shelf.
Yeah. So he was toying with the idea. Like he was kind of putting pieces of that idea together because Star Wars and Indiana Jones kind of go hand in hand.
Sure.
They're both based off serials from the 1950s. Mm-hmm. And so as the story goes, in 1977, Spielberg and Lucas were having a little like manly vacation in Hawaii together. And
very manly.
Yeah, very manly.
Uh-huh.
And
do you think they rubbed each other down? And
they did. They had to put someone had to put somebody's sun lotion on their back.
Oh, yeah.
And so it was right before Star Wars was going to be released. Lucas thought it was going to be bomb, so he was staying in Hawaii.
Isn't that funny?
Writing it out, yeah. And so he thought that was going to bomb, so he wanted to get out of the town and away from it all to have a 2-week, 3-week vacation. And
which is hilarious because they do interviews with the cast of Star Wars, and they always, did you know it was going to blow up? And every one of them like, yeah, we knew. We knew it was going to be a big hit. All of us
fucking lying.
You think they were lying?
Yeah, they were lying.
Yeah,
because you see some interviews to where like Carrie Fisher will be interviewed, and she's like, "Yeah, so I'm on the soundstage and I'm saying this dialogue. Oh, I should have known you holding Vader's leash." And like, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, many Bothans died, bringing us this information. Like, what the fuck does that even mean?
Yeah, you're probably right.
But so anyways, they're in Hawaii, and during the time Star Wars is about to be released, and Close Encounters of the Third Kind is in post-production.
Mm-hmm.
So Spielberg is down there, and Spielberg was stating to his BFF how he really wanted to do a Bond movie. And he actually approached Cubby Broccoli, the producer of the Bond films, that he wanted to direct a Bond movie. But at that time, only British directors were allowed to direct
Really?
Bond. Were only allowed to. I mean, that's always who they got, were British directors to direct Bond, up until recently.
Not that American directors were interested, just only British directors were interested?
No, American directors were interested. It's just Cubby Broccoli wanted to keep it in England.
Oh, he was ultra nationalist.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Keep those pesky Americans out.
Yeah.
So Spielberg,
could be good advice.
Yeah. Spielberg didn't get the chance to direct a Bond film, but then George Lucas said, "Well, I got something better than James Bond," and then he pitched him Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark. So the actual script wasn't written at the time. Like, he had a treatment. And him and I believe it was like Philip Kaufman,
yes,
had kind of put in their story pieces, because originally George Lucas wanted Philip Kaufman to direct it, but then Philip Kaufman got busy with, I think it was the Outlaw Josie Wales, and so Spielberg was like, okay, yeah, I'll do that. And if you watch, I mean, a lot of it'll be interesting as we continue to watch these movies to see how similar they are to James Bond, because I noticed there's definite James Bond story beats in at least the first couple of movies that we've seen so far. And but yeah, so that's kind of how he convinced Spielberg to direct it.
Right. And Philip Kaufman, I'm like, where do I know that name? He directed The Right Stuff, and it's a great movie, by the way. And a very underrated movie called Rising Sun with Sean Connery and Wesley Snipes.
I love that movie.
Well, you got to do like Yeah. Hidden gem for that bad boy.
Yep. So,
Yeah.
they pitched Raiders of the Lost Ark. They wanted, they screen tested a lot of people. Tim Matheson.
Tom Selleck.
Tom Selleck was.
I saw the screen test for Tom Selleck and Sean Young.
Mm-hmm. So Tom Selleck was actually their number one choice.
And your favorite show.
And one of my favorite shows, Magnum.
Came in and scooped him up.
Yep. So, well, he was already doing Magnum, and he couldn't get released from his TV contract to do Raiders. So they actually hired Harrison Ford, I think 2 or 3 weeks before shooting began, and George Lucas didn't want to use Harrison Ford because he had already used him in Star Wars and American Graffiti.
Right.
And
I always think about this when those casting stories that you don't know about, like would the movie be as big if someone else was casting it? Like, Will Smith was supposed to be Neo and Keanu Reeves swooped in there. Like, do you think the movie would have been as big if Tom Selleck was Indy versus Harrison Ford?
I don't know. I mean, I've seen the screen test too, and I pick up a lot of Magnum in that screen test.
For sure.
And I mean, they're similar characters. They have the same kind of personality. They know what's right. Like Indiana Jones, I feel like has a little bit more edge than what Magnum does. But
maybe it's because Harrison portrays the edge. I don't know.
Yeah,
a little bit better.
I don't know. I would say maybe not, just because Harrison Ford strikes me more of an everyman kind of a person, and Tom Selleck is like super tall, super athletic.
He's like 6'10".
Yeah, and at least 7'4".
Yeah,
and
he's huge.
So I don't know. I want to say I doubt it would be as successful. I think it would still be a hit, but I don't know if they'd still be making Indiana Jones movies if it was Tom Selleck, simply because, and no diss on him, but a lot of the movies he's done just never really reached that. I mean, I think his most popular movie was probably 3 Men and a Baby.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's
Mr.
been in a
Baseball?
couple other ones that I like. Yeah, Mr. Baseball. I love Folks. I love that movie.
I've never seen that.
Oh, it's pretty good. It's a comedy, but his father's suffering from dementia. And so it's just like, and hilarity ensues because dementia is hilarious.
It's hilarious, yes.
But
Just
I think it was like in the late 80s, or I think it was an early 90s movie. But yeah, a lot of Tom Selleck movies never really
picked up steam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, so Harrison Ford was chosen to be in it, and
Harrison's Ford,
his car too, and it was released. I think it was in theaters for like 41 weeks.
Yeah,
and made a shit ton of money. And
I was looking at the adjusted for box office inflation all time. Raiders is like number 17.
Yeah,
like $900 million in today's dollars. It's crazy.
Yeah. So
well, I mean, at that time, has there been a movie like what made it special? I was thinking about that watching it. Like, what made it so?
I think
stand out so much.
Honestly, it was just the scale.
Yeah.
I remember a comment my parents said first time I watched Raiders all the way through. I was like, "That's a pretty good movie." I was like, "It felt long, which it still feels long."
Mm-hmm.
And my mom said, "Yeah, I remember the first time I watched that movie, I felt like I'd been through a war." And
wow,
just from the amount of action that was in there, and I think it was probably just an action adventure film on that scale that people just haven't seen in a while, because the last time they saw like a swashbuckling hero, it was a little bit in Star Wars, but it was mainly like Robin Hood, like Errol Flynn, like all those older movies and adventure films.
Because you've seen the Bond movies more than I have. Like this would have been Roger Moore. Like those movies weren't like every set piece and every like the pacing, I guess, it's not frantic like it is in Raiders.
Bond is a lot more subdued. The action really ramped up like with the they really kind of put in the action in probably Timothy Dalton and like started to scale it up.
Gotcha.
Now they were competing with Steven Spielberg in American cinema. Like you had a lot of the 80s action movies, and it had to kind of keep up with that, to where a lot of, the older Bond movies, people still enjoyed them for the same sake of going on an adventure. But, the action was typically sped up. It just wasn't done that, I guess, competently before.
Yeah.
And it was just, I think, a different kind of filmmaking because, I mean, if you look at it, was made in 1981. I mean, they blew up a plane. They had Harrison Ford dragging behind a truck. They had, they had a lot of those stunts.
Really cool stuff. Cool visuals, too, I would say were a lot different than. And you're right. I don't think. This is before Stallone and Schwarzenegger really blew. Because Terminator was, 84? Oh, I guess Rocky came out. But he wasn't like Stallone in 1981.
Yeah, he wasn't doing his
Cobra and Maximum Overdrive. Or what Over the Top.
Over the Top.
Yeah. Yeah. The whole 80s one-man army stuff. Yeah, that wasn't really there.
So I think it was just the amount of action that took place in that film.
Yeah, and then the execution.
The scale of it.
Yeah,
and
really good.
But so I'm guessing that's probably what.
And I think the story's very.
Yeah, the story's
interesting. It's like a supernatural.
Too. Yeah.
Sort of historical, historical hints to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people can relate to it because most, like Judeo-Christian God, yet you already have a majority of the population in America being able to relate to it, which is why I think this movie and The Last Crusade went over better than Temple of Doom, just because of people being able to relate to it, kind of.
Sure.
With the occult, as they call it in this
movie.
Yeah. And those kinds of artifacts.
Which in The Last Crusade, they had the. I'm already forgetting it. The cup. What's it called? The Holy Grail.
Holy Grail.
So the I didn't look at this, but is the Ark like a real thing, or did they just make it up for this movie?
The Ark,
or is it based off something that held the Ten Commandments? I don't remember.
It is based. I mean, it's.
Or I don't know. I should say
it. I want to say it's a real thing as much as
I want it to be.
The Holy Grail is a real thing, but I mean, then you're getting into. But yes, it is. It's actually. A thing in the Bible. It's what they did put the Ten Commandments in.
Okay.
And all that stuff. Which
I guess he does mention it in the movie.
Yeah.
Right.
And actually the idea for having the Ark being the MacGuffin was from Philip Kaufman's dentist.
Really?
Because when he was a child, he went to the dentist and his dentist told him the story of the Ark. But in how it was supposed to have magical powers to where anyone who looked upon it would immediately be destroyed and blah, blah, blah.
Gotcha.
Blah, blah.
So before the age of Google, you heard facts from
your dentist,
passing conversations with your dentist.
Yeah, and he said it just stuck with him as a child, and it always fascinated him. That story.
Huh.
So
cool.
But so yeah.
Well, let's get into this movie.
Frog. Shit.
Excuse me. I'm sure everyone listening has seen Raiders of the Lost Ark, so I won't bore you with what it's about.
We recommend it.
But I guess like what? Okay, so I obviously love this movie. It's my favorite indie movie. I would say it's a close second with The Last Crusade, but this is my favorite, and it's just I love the chemistry between Harrison Ford and Karen Allen. I think Karen Allen she's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
She's so good in it. She plays that great balancing act between not being the stereotypical damsel in distress, while also being a damsel in distress. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, well, she plays a real character, so she's a real person. She has strengths, and then she also has weaknesses, and that's fine. Same thing with Harrison Ford. He's not invincible in this either.
Yes.
And side note, Drew Struzan did not do the poster art for this. It was Amsel. I'm looking at the picture right now.
I don't even know who.
I see Amsel written right in the bottom corner. So everyone that is typing angry comments, please just post them because it boosts the algorithm.
Yes,
but
please.
yes, I realize now my mistake. I am sorry. I will give myself 50 lashings and
admonish him
and contemplate sleeping outside tonight.
Oh, I didn't even know there was a guy named Amsel.
Yeah.
So there you go.
So, but yeah, so Karen Allen's great in this. But yeah, I like how, and we're probably just going to hop around this movie, but
that's fine.
I mean, you get introduced to her character, being in a drinking contest in Nepal at a bar that she owns, and she kind of plays it off like she's gonna lose, and then she snaps right out of it. So she's a strong drinker, but then what they established there, she uses to her advantage as soon as the opportunity arises when she's captured by the Nazis and she's in the tent with Bullock and tries to outdrink him so that way she can make her escape or whatever. And it's just small things like that that I enjoy, that she's not just good at drinking for the sake of good. They already established that. Or that she's not pulling some random skill out of her ass. It stays true to the character throughout the whole movie of what she's capable of doing.
Yep. Yeah.
So,
and I think the pacing, like just analyzing the pacing of the movie, rewatching it, it really doesn't let up.
Yeah,
it just keeps going.
It does keep going. It always, like, I want to say after Egypt, it starts to kind of drag a little bit for me. This movie feels almost 70s to me. I mean, I know it was made in 81, but it's still, like, rewatching it, I kind of felt like this could have came out in the 70s and still probably would have been felt the same. I don't know if that was just because of the film stock that they had and that they used.
Could be.
But the pacing, I think, is good. I think the pacing in the later movie, especially Crusade, I think the pacing is a little bit better, but it also has almost 10 years of filmmaking evolution applied to it. So I guess it's not fair to say. But, yeah, I mean, overall the pacing is good. For a 1981 movie, like comparing it to a movie that came out a year after Blade Runner, also starring Harrison Ford.
That's not paced the same.
Yeah, it's not paced the same.
I don't think they were going for that. I love the introduction of Indy. It's probably my favorite movie character introduction of all time. Mm-hmm. The movie going audiences probably never saw something like that because it's very, I don't know, creepy.
I disagree.
The shots they take.
Character. I will say they have seen a similar character introduction.
Okay, well, you'll have to correct me.
Yeah, but
just obviously John Williams' score is awesome. It's got this weird creepiness to it in the beginning, but inviting. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah,
and then
intriguing.
And they're just walking through the jungle. It's nothing like the first 5 minutes of them are them walking through the jungle before they enter the whatever cave where the golden head is.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's Alfred Molina and his buddy and partner in crime or whatever that you actually hear from first.
Yeah.
And you're just kind of following this mysterious person through the thing. But yeah, fantastic introduction. I would say it's definitely in the top 2. I think.
What's number one? Bond? Is Bond for you?
Bond's pretty similar. So, going back to Bond, so when they introduce Sean Connery and Dr. No, they do the same kind of similar introduction. Yeah. Whenever they introduce a new Bond, they typically do that mysterious introduction. So they did it on Majesty's Secret Service. And I saw Live and Let Die once because Roger Moore is shit. But typically when they introduce a new Bond, they kind of build up to it with a profile, see the person running from the back, and then all of a sudden they're there. But yeah, it's definitely, I learned about it in college as far as character introductions, and this movie was like at the top of the list as far as the best introductions that's been done.
Did they do I already lost my thought. Damn it. Anyway, keep going. It'll come back to me.
Well, I'll just did it have to do with Bond?
No, it didn't.
Okay. But, well, I'll stay on Bond because I have a couple of things that I found similar. One, the character introduction was very Bond-esque. Cold opens is typically a Bond motif to where you see him at the tail end of an adventure or in the middle of an adventure or a mission or something, and then it goes to the credit sequences, and then it opens up into the main storyline. Sometimes the cold open is loosely applied to the main story, like in GoldenEye. Sometimes it's not. It's just a random thing that he's doing, and it's just some random
It's to
mission.
get you juiced.
Yeah, it's to get you amped. A nice little action set piece to set the stage. So they always do that. They typically do the cold opens in Raider or in the Indiana Jones. For example, this one is the rolling boulder and getting the idol, which doesn't really have anything to do with the main story, but you are introduced to one of the villains, Bullock, in that scene. So a little bit carries over, but overall it doesn't have anything to do with the main plot.
Booby traps.
Booby traps.
That's what my thought was.
Awesome.
Do you think that's another reason why it was so successful? Had we ever seen booby traps applied to like an adventure piece like this? Because that is very like that's what engrossed me as a kid. Just are there places like that exist?
It's always like the best part of the
yeah. I mean, they're in all the movies, subsequent movies. I don't remember ever seeing anything like that before.
Yeah, in a movie like this, probably not. Like if we asked our parents, they could probably think of a couple of films,
like a TV show or something, or
something from like their childhood, or like I would say probably older movies may have had it.
Yeah,
but I mean, as far as when I think of booby traps, I think of Goonies, and then Indiana Jones, and then like National Treasure. So
yeah.
I mean, they're not typically used quite a bit, but I do think the booby traps help, or like that kind of trying to apply a mechanism to solve the next quest in a treasure hunt. And I think part of it, you get presented with danger, but it's also trying to solve a puzzle. And taking an audience along with that, I think it's an easy way for them to be engaged, which another reason why people kind of like mysteries is because you're typically solving it along with the character,
right?
Or trying to figure it out along with the character.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, as far as that kind of scale or like that huge of a movie, I'm not sure. No, I mean, nothing comes off the top of my head because you're coming from the 70s, which is a lot of like more grittier filmmaking. You had a Taxi Driver, and
I was gonna say character studies.
Yeah, character movies like The French Connection. Like you had more grounded movies as opposed to these fantastical adventure stories that weren't popular since like the maybe early 60s.
Right. I think it wasn't until Jaws made so much money when studios started to really say, okay, let's put more money into these big budget movies and take people on an adventure versus like the character studies and like the dramas where the budget was probably 50% was to the actors that were billed on the studio.
I mean, I think it probably just goes in waves. Mm-hmm. So I mean, you get the grounded, realistic movies, and then you kind of go up into the peaks of fantastical escapism, and then you go back down into realism again. And we had a lot of fantastical realism in the 90s, and then you get into the 2000s, and then it kind of started dipping into, like, with the advent of The Dark Knight and Jason Bourne, and these movies, everyone's like, oh, gritty, real kind of a thing. And so we had that kind of slump, but I feel like we're starting to come out of that now with all the Marvel stuff, but at the same time, I think that that form of escapism might be waning a bit. But yeah, I think it kind of.
So you think we're back down to the valley of grit and realism?
No, I think there's still a lot of grit and realism. I think we're on the tail end of that, but I think whatever fantastical escapism we're going to be going into is not going to be comic book movies. It'll be some other kind of genre that we haven't seen in a while.
Right, that'd be nice.
Yeah.
Welcome it.
Yes. Slopping back over to Bond again, you get the Bond girl, Karen Allen.
Yeah.
And this is kind of like looking at it throughout all the movies, because in the next movie, then you get Kate Capshaw, and then the movie after that, you get hot blonde Nazi chick, and then the movie after that, then you get Karen Allen again. So I mean, they're kind of different every time, which is a Bond motif. It's typically never the same girl, 2 movies in a row, unless you're Sylvia Trench in Dr. No and From Russia with Love, which is Bond's girlfriend.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. But I think she was the only one that was in. Do
you just want to talk about Bond?
No. But also the visiting the exotic locations.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a Bond thing. I mean, that's just an adventure period. But then also Denholm Brody kind of plays like an M to Harrison's to Indiana Jones.
Yep.
And a lot of elements, more further elements that Bond tropes that they use in Temple of Doom, which we could talk about next week. But
I thought the use of like the map and him flying to places is such an easy thing to do to kind of expand the scope of the movie.
Yeah,
you could have done that, and like I know they went to Tunisia to film all the Egypt stuff, but I think most of it, other than the jungle and the Tunisia. Most of it was filmed on a soundstage, but you get that feeling like you went all over the globe in the movie.
Yeah, and it really puts the journey. It shows like the journey, and which is great because it gives you a frame of reference where you're at in the world, and gives you a sense of scale to the adventure, and it also kind of moves things along a little bit, or gives you like a better visual representation as opposed to just hopping on a plane and then landing and then saying Nepal on the bottom of the screen or something like that, and you just see a bunch of snow and shit.
And back to Bond,
yes,
like the villain or villains, like a memorable villain.
Yeah.
All these movies, all the Indiana Jones movies have the memorable villain, like a Bond movie does.
Yeah, I put that down to where villains have their own motivations. So you have pretty much 3 villains in here. You have Toht, Ronald Lacey, who is the creepy.
Did you know he almost quit acting?
Really?
Yeah,
because he just nailed it.
He was actually a talent agent.
Oh,
and somebody that they wanted for this role. He was like the agent for the actor that they wanted, and then the actor that they wanted was like, well, did you know my agent is a stage actor? And they sent Spielberg a tape. He watched the tape, and then he talked to this guy, and it's like, hey, do you want to just say a few lines? And then he got the job.
That's the nicest client ever.
I know.
Hey, I'm working to try and get you this job. I know, but I'll give it to you.
Yeah, because he killed it.
Yeah,
he's
good. He played that creepy. Oh, yeah. Like I don't know if they put lipstick on him, but he's always so pale and his lips has those like fish lips. It's just
gross.
So like such a weird looking guy, but he plays it so well.
Yeah.
You had Toht, who is just kind of like a creepy
evil henchman.
Yeah,
just
evil
gets
henchman.
Off blood and
you had Belloc, who is kind of more of like a suave, and then you had who was
Gobbler.
Gobbler?
Right?
Is that the Nazi?
Yeah, the proper Nazi. Yeah.
And the other guy that had his face melt or explode or whatever.
The 3 face melty guys.
Yeah. You had 3 different villains, but I feel like they each had their own motivations. You had Belloc, who was kind of more in for the notoriety, but also you could tell he was going to try and sneak it away and use it for his own purposes.
Yeah.
And to where he wasn't a Nazi, he was just using them to
fund it.
Yeah, to get where he wanted to be. You had Toht, who was just like the creepy, I'm following orders, but I'm going to do it the sleaziest way possible. And then you have Gobbler, who's it's to the letter. I'm a military man. I'm going to do what I need to do.
My commander-in-chief tells me.
Yeah, the best for the better of us. But yeah, I love the villains. That they each had their own thing, and they just weren't one note. They were, and even Belloc, you could. Like there was times in the film to where you felt like he was protective of Karen Allen, maybe for his own rapey ways or rapey purposes, but it was but you could tell he was like, all right, you guys are crossing the line a little bit. I'm gonna try and help her if I can, kind of a thing.
Yeah,
but
I think he liked her.
Oh yeah, I think he genuinely liked her too.
Yeah.
But it was nice that they had that in there to where it wasn't so like over the top, you're mine, you're my possession, kind of like just that typical bad guy bullshit.
Yeah.
But it was just more of he was trying to play his cards that he was dealt, and he was trying to win the game of the Ark or whatever. But
you're rooting against him, but not so much to. He had some motivations, some human motivation, some nuance to him. He wasn't just by the numbers villain, at all. But yeah, so rewatching it, what'd you think of some of the dialogue? And I'm thinking of the bar scene.
Oh, when they're
I didn't even realize it until I was rewatching it. But she mentioned something like
being a child. You're talking about Indiana
Jones
a child. Banging a child.
Yeah, I was a child. He's like, you knew what you were doing. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Is that a euphemism, child? Like she was 19, or was she a child? I don't know.
I always took it as I didn't know what kind of age her character was supposed to be playing, because Indiana Jones, Harrison Ford, I think was 38 in this movie.
Yeah.
And he was probably supposed to be playing like a 35-year-old or something. I didn't read into the canon when the character was born, all that bullshit. And I haven't read the Indiana Jones wiki. I always interpreted it as that she was just a teenager, or young, but I didn't think it was as young as what I guess has been established.
Okay.
But I always thought it was like 1918, and he was probably like 25 or something, and to where it was kind of like her first love situation, and then he was kind of like, oh, all right, but
I was doing the math in my head for sure.
Yeah,
because he mentioned something I haven't seen Abner in 10 years. So if she's 28 at the time when they're in Nepal, then okay, well no crimes being committed.
Her character is supposed to be 25.
Oh, well, there you go.
So, 15. And I saw
boy.
I watched a video, Caravan of Garbage.
Okay.
And they talked about that, and they actually threw up transcripts of a brainstorming session between Spielberg and Lucas, and it's not good.
Oh, no.
And it's just not good.
Oh, boy.
So watch the Raiders Caravan of Garbage video if you want more information. But it's but of course it's a brainstorming session. They're spitballing.
They're just spitballing.
They're throwing out random shit.
Throwing out stuff.
They're probably 3 beers in, or at least 5 or 6 drinks in, because some of the shit that, like, I don't know. There are some things that Lucas said that I think Spielberg was like, well, we got to have her a little older. Like,
oh, really?
Yeah, like 12. He's like, wouldn't that be interesting? And I'm like, well, yes and no, but you're taking it to a totally different direction.
George, where are the cameras in this room?
Yeah. But whenever I saw this, I thought she was just kind of using a euphemism to where I was a child and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Like, I was a stupid
kid.
I was a stupid kid, and stupid kid being 19.
It's college.
And
we all experiment.
Yeah. She was probably like in university or something, and then he showed up. He was the apprentice to her father, and she's like, oh, and she like tries to seduce him and everything else, and that's why he's like, you knew what you were doing, kind of like. But yeah.
Wouldn't that be interesting? And then everyone shares an awkward glance at each other.
Yeah. Like,
George, stay away from my daughter, George.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, that's all I read into it. And I think that scene is more importantly in there is because just to establish a relationship without having them to establish a new relationship like they had to do in
Temple of Doom.
Yeah. So,
have some contention. So there's friction there to make it more interesting.
Yeah, like have because I mean, it would be a lot less interesting if Indiana Jones shows up to random girl who happens to be his colleague's daughter, and she's like, "Oh, Indiana,
nice
how
to
you
see
doing?" Yeah, and no animosity there or
Yeah.
anything like that, because it gives Indiana a challenge, gives him a reason to bring Marion along because he needs the medallion and all that good stuff. I think it just flows better for the story.
Yeah.
Did they have to be as young as what they were? Probably not, but it's a fictional story, so.
Well, speaking of plot, I'm going to play this clip here.
Oh.
And I want your thoughts.
Okay.
Indiana Jones plays no role in the outcome of the story. Like, if he weren't in the film, it would turn out exactly the same.
Oh, I see your confusion. You don't understand. Indiana Jones was the one in the hat with the whip.
No, I do. And if he weren't in the movie, the Nazis would have still found the Ark, taken it to the island, opened it up, and all died. Just like they did. Let me close that for you.
How can anyone ruin Raiders? It's perfect.
Yeah, except for the fact that Indiana Jones is completely irrelevant to the story. Yet with or without him, the Nazis find the Ark, open it, and die.
Wait a minute. No, the Nazis were digging in the wrong place. The only reason they got the Ark was because Indy found it first.
Actually, they were only digging in the wrong place because Indy had the medallion. Without him, they would have had the medallion and dug in the right place.
Anyway, what do you think of that?
It is not incorrect.
Yeah.
And
I guess the better question is, okay, but does it matter?
Yeah, no,
it doesn't matter.
It's the story.
Yeah.
And the fact that you could make a story to where a character can be as inconsequential,
Yeah.
and no one figured that out for the 40 years that this movie's been around, then still pretty good story.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a glaring plot hole because like the whole time he's trying to get the Ark away from the Nazis, and yeah, I guess the same thing would have happened if he wasn't in the picture. But I mean, it still doesn't. I don't think it makes the plot less relevant. He just didn't. He couldn't get ahead of him.
Yep.
Anyway.
Yeah, and I mean,
and that's good, right?
Yeah. And I think
he didn't
Caravan of
outsmart
Garbage also brought up that Karen Allen's character probably would have been killed.
Yeah.
So she would have
There you
died.
go. She would have
So
died.
he saved her.
Yeah.
And the United States government now has it being researched by top men.
They're gonna do wonderful things with it.
Yeah, like putting it in a box in the middle of a warehouse. So now it's out of harm's way. Now some kid's not going to be walking on that island. Oh, what's in here? And
Yeah,
then
on that island in the middle of Greece.
get their face melted off.
Oh yeah, I wanted to bring that up. What did you think of the? I didn't realize how violent it was. Like, there's a couple scenes where I'm like, oh my god. Like the first one that jumps out to me is the scene in the bar where Indy shoots the guy in the head. And they do a close up of like even the sound effect of, and then like they close up on him and then like blood's running. I'm like, Jesus.
Yeah,
that's kind of gnarly.
Yeah, this almost had an R rating from gore.
Oh, okay.
And so like at the last when they have the lid of the Ark off and everyone's looking at it and they're doing the ceremony thing, and the guy says, "Oh, it's beautiful," and everyone's face melts. Bullock's head explodes.
Yeah.
And in the original cut, it was a lot more graphic. And so what they did was they just overlaid some flames over him to kind of hide the effect because it was too realistic, or what the MPAA was going to say, you're going to get an R rating because of gore.
Yeah, when did Scanners come out?
Oh, I have no clue.
I'm looking it up right now. 1981, the same year.
No, I've never seen that movie.
The reason I bring it up is because I'm like, when did they rate Scanners? And they rated it like so they had two movies coming out where someone's head explodes, and obviously in Scanners it's way more graphic. But for the MPAA, you're like, well, we had this movie where this guy's head's exploding. Mm-hmm. So I mean, you're gonna get the same rating as this movie where the guy's head's exploding.
Yeah, and because they didn't have PG-13 at the time, so it was either PG or R. And obviously they wanted this to have more of a wider audience appeal. So
which Temple of Doom was the movie that forced them.
Yeah, one of the movies to make them have a
PG-13 rating,
a middle rating in between.
Yeah.
So.
The more you know, Jay.
The more you know.
But yeah, I mean, God, it's just a good movie, executed well, scores. I mean, John Williams, of course. I was actually expecting when the Ark gets put into the warehouse, and it's got that large panning shot, the wide shot, and then John Williams scores like buildings, like dun, dun, and I'm waiting for it to go dun, 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 dun.
Into Star Wars.
Into Star Wars.
Shit, guys, sorry.
Wrong movie. Oh, damn it.
Sorry.
Yeah.
One of the things I think my favorite thing about these movies is his character, and I mentioned this earlier, is that his character's not invincible.
Yeah.
He's not perfect at everything, so it feels like the whole movie just kind of has a little bit of weight and some
stakes. Yeah.
And to where he fights people, to where it's not just him easily just knocking people out over and over. I mean, some of the henchmen and stuff, like he kind of puts some bullets through people's heads and starts
he kills people,
taking people out. But like when he fights people, he's just not the best. Like he gets hit around, and it's like when he fights the huge German near the plane, to where he gets punched in the face, and it's just like it knocks him on his ass. He's like, oh fuck,
yeah, whoops.
But it's like those moments of humanness, and then but also he doesn't like he approaches it like I feel like somebody's dad would. For example, like he's making his way to the plane, and that huge German comes out, and he walks over, and he like yells at him, and he's like, "Come on, we're gonna fight." And then you just see Indiana Jones like look back and just kind of like hang his head. Like he's already so tired, and he's like, "Damn it."
Yep.
I God, all right.
Yep.
fine. And it's not like, oh yeah, I'm gonna fight you too kind of mentality. It's just like, oh shit,
Yeah.
like this guy.
Or like the infamous improvised scene in the street where the guy has the sword out and
Yeah.
he just picks. It's like this. No, he just takes his gun out.
Just shoots him.
That's great. Yeah, that definitely adds an element of uniqueness to it because he's flawed and it feels like he's definitely figuring it out on the fly. He doesn't have a plan really coming into it.
Oh, he even says that so much. He's like, oh, what are you gonna do? He's like, I don't know. I'm making this up as I go.
Yeah. Yeah. You definitely get that feeling. But yeah.
Another thing I liked about this is it's this and Temple of Doom does this too, and I gotta rewatch Crusade yet, but you feel the atmosphere in these movies. Like you see the sweat, you see like when
It's
they're
not
in
polished.
the jungle, like you could see the dirt, the grime, and you could see the sweat marks on his shirt when he's running through Egypt and everything else. Granted, they're in 100-degree heat, but I feel like a lot of that griminess is missing to where you feel like, especially in Nepal. So you feel the chill when you're watching that scene outside of the bar, but inside the bar feels kind of like
Musty?
little musty, little humid, like it just a little humid, but a little hot too. So where it feels more like you just get that hot, cold feeling. Same thing in Egypt. Like it's just like you see him running and you see the sweat, like you feel the heat and the environment and everything else. And I think that's just something that is done very, very well in these movies, at least the first two, that I feel like you don't see too much in a lot of recent movies, because everyone, I feel like, probably has it in their contract where, oh, I don't sweat that much, or I don't want to see any, like, I don't want to see pit stains or something
Right.
when I'm acting. So like everyone's kind of, I mean, I guess Fast and Furious, they might be like a little
Some motor
glistening.
oil?
Yeah,
Or-
glistening or something.
Sure.
But it's not like that dirty sweat. Like Die Hard had that too.
Yeah,
to
yeah.
where you felt the heat in the air ducts. You felt like and just I feel like it added to the intensity, it added to the just the whole the scenery as a whole, to make it a little bit more believable.
Sure.
And that's just something that I think was really, really well done in this movie. That's probably one of my favorite things that I like about it. That and the silhouette of the character. Like they did such a good job on character design.
Yeah.
For him, especially when they're digging in Egypt, and he puts on like the hat.
Yeah.
You have the silhouette with the sun setting in the background. I was like you show that silhouette to anybody, and that's Indiana Jones.
Yep.
And
It's definitely got Lawrence of Arabia vibes. I mean, it's one of
Yeah.
Steven Spielberg's favorite movies, so that's what I thought of when I saw that shot. And you know what I like about it? He's a hero. You know,
Yeah.
He's not a bumbling oaf.
Mm-hmm.
He's actually smart and thoughtful and plays the hero. He saves the day.
Yeah, he's not. He has intelligence. Yeah, he's not. Yeah, a dumbass just lucking into things.
Yeah.
and he's not perfect, but his persistence, and ingenuity is what allows him to prevail. And and everything that he does is like believable, or you see some kind of thing, like when they're trapped in the Well of Souls, and him and Karen Allen are down there, and then he's like looking around, and then he sees snakes going through holes. He's like, oh, okay, I'm gonna knock down that wall. They're coming in from somewhere. At least maybe that's a way out, kind of a thing.
Right. And do you think MacGyver was inspired by Indiana Jones?
I don't know. I wouldn't put it past.
That's what I think of when I watch that. I'm like,
Has it?
it's like MacGyver. He's like
Yeah.
MacGyvering his way out of these
Figuring,
situations.
Like, always trapped in somebody's
Yeah.
basement, and he's
Yeah.
figures a way out.
Yeah.
Yeah, very well could be. It's a nice hero. Like in how do I want to say this without sounding like a douche?
Oh, it's too late.
That's too late.
It's too late.
Like it.
Just let it out.
It just
man.
feels like there's
just let
purpose. what he's doing and what they allow him to do in these movies. And I don't know. You don't get heroes like that anymore. Damn movies these days.
I know.
But
yep, that's why I love it.
yeah,
It's just it feels original still, or at least new.
yeah,
It's like, oh, I haven't seen this in a while.
yeah. It feels refreshing.
Yeah.
and it's made in a way that doesn't age.
Yeah. My boys loved it, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. My son Liam, who's 7, really enjoyed it.
Oh yeah.
He liked Temple of Doom more, but that's because Short Round's in it.
Yeah, and I mean he's at that perfect age too.
Oh, yeah.
Where like 7, 8, this
Oh,
is prime time to watch like those adventure style movies.
Yeah,
and everything.
absolutely. Yeah, he was always like, every scene was like, "What's in there?" I'm like, "There's snakes." He's like, "He's gonna go into a room full of snakes." I was like, "Yeah, it's full of snakes." Dad, are they poisonous? Like, yeah, a few of them are.
Yeah. That's a cobra.
That's a
That'll fuck
cobra,
you up.
kid. Yeah, it was cool watching it with him. I like watching movies with him because everything's new and
Oh yeah.
exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, anything more on Raiders?
Nothing else. I recommend it.
I do too.
It's really good.
So wait, how would you rank this again?
It's my favorite.
Okay.
It's my favorite.
I
Barely. Actually, I might change my mind when I watch The Last Crusade because I haven't seen that in a while. But I love the chemistry between Sir Sean and Harrison.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's one of my favorite film chemistries of all time. Just I love that relationship.
Oh, there's another Bond motif. Sean Connery in your movie.
Oh, there you go.
Boom.
Yep. And he's such a good actor that, like, I mean, I could watch him in anything.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine a better or more prolific pairing at the time than to have Harrison Ford and Sean Connery in an Indiana Jones movie.
Yeah.
I'm like, Jesus.
Pretty good.
Yeah. Anyway, but for now, it's Raiders, my favorite.
Yeah. I don't know. And I think I'm going to rank these just based on how, I mean,
How you feel that day?
well, I think this is probably one of the better Indiana Jones movies.
Uh-huh.
I think it's up there with Last Crusade. I think Last Crusade is probably one of the best made ones, but this one, I mean, it's one of those, oh, well, if the first one wasn't as good as it was, then you want to have the other one. Okay. But
It's such a dumb argument.
I
It's like, yeah. Yeah, that's the point. But then you make them better.
So, I think this is definitely the second most fun one for me.
Okay.
The Last Crusade, I think, is probably the most fun. As
very
far as
fun.
my favorite, I want to say probably Last Crusade again, but that's probably just because that's the one I saw the most when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But
But there's elements of Temple of Doom that I like more than
oh
this
yeah,
one.
Absolutely. There's
Yeah.
like because I was considering ranking this one as number 3,
Oh, okay.
just because Temple of Doom has one of my favorite scenes
Oh, yeah.
in it, and in that I love Short Round in it.
Oh, he's great.
I love the darker tone of that movie.
Yeah.
And
There's one element of that movie that holds it back for me, though.
What's
Even
that?
after rewatching it. You can find out more in the next
oh
podcast.
snap! So yeah, I would say this is probably tied with 2 or
Okay.
second one. Just
All right.
and you'll figure out the tie for that one next week.
Those are cliffhangers, folks.
Yeah, God, yeah. Use your powers
Yeah.
of deduction, audience, to figure out what the fuck I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know.
All right. Well, join us next time as we continue our quest for fortune and glory with the Raiders 1984 prequel, Indiana Jones and Temple of Doom.
Yes.
So, and as always, comment on our episodes on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/@acastwithnoname. There's also a link on our website to our YouTube channel if you want to look at it that way. Also, Spotify, all that shit. Just
All the stuff.
Just give us a hand. Just
Especially
crying.
J.O. He's in bad shape over here.
I am.
He looks old.
I do look. It's not true. I look like I'm fucking 15.
You do.
But yeah, that's next time. Temple of Doom.
Till next time, Jay.
Till next time, man.